I've been a registered dietitian for almost 20 years now, and I've been holistic. I call myself a holistic dietitian for the last 11 years. And my husband and I co-own Shoreline Center for Healing. It is primarily acupuncture and nutrition here in town, in Old Town. And we've been married for over 20 years and just thrilled to work together. My specialty really has become healing with whole foods. We're going to talk a lot about this. It sounds too simple to be true. This stuff isn't rocket science, but it is so incredibly important. We believe that the body was designed to heal itself, and so we're going to talk a lot about that this evening. And I'm going to go through diabetes and blood sugar problems and some solutions, some ways to deal with this. But what I want to do is really get people to see the point that what we put in our mouths matters, and even if we have a diagnosis, whatever that is, we have control over a lot of this. What I'm going to do is paint more of a picture of how we can start thinking differently, and also how we can start to make some changes. I love this quote. I thought it was worth putting on here again, that Morgan Spurlock says, "We have become so drug-oriented. We live in a world where we've become so pharmaceuticalized that the idea of changing anything just through diet is kind of preposterous to a lot of people. That's almost like old medicine, like a witch doctor." And I agree, that's where we have gone to. One of the things that we have to realize is that good health makes a lot of sense, but it doesn't make a lot of money. Pharmaceuticals make billions of dollars. Processed food industry makes billions of dollars. Like Sandy said, if we can start to make a shift in what we spend our money on, that's where we're going to see things changing. Okay, so I want to start out, kind of paint a picture with a bit of background, how we're going to talk about the body. As Sandy mentioned, I have a holistic practice, and what this means is that we believe that everything is connected, that it all is interconnected. If you have something wrong in your stomach, and there's going to be a connection somewhere else. It's not just in that one place. So like the spider web, we have, if you pull on one place in the web, the whole web is going to move. Things are more intimately connected in certain spots, but the whole web is connected. This is how the body works, and modern medicine has gotten to a point where we're not taking that into account anymore. Modern medicine does wonderful things for trauma, life-saving, acute illness, acute injury, but we are failing miserably with preventing disease, keeping people healthy, keeping people well. So we need to think about that a little bit and recognize nutrition. Most physicians are not being taught any nutrition. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from my clients that their doctor has flat out told them, what you eat doesn't matter. And that is so incredibly wrong. Just like to mention, a lot of people, this is getting more and more press, and I wrote an article for Oriana's newsletter a few months back, but epigenetics, this is really, it's the study of how your environment and the choices that you make, the food that you eat, affects your genetic expression. It's been called the new paradigm, the medicine of the future, because it is profoundly changing the way that we understand health and healing. Things like stress, diet, toxins, and other factors actually activate little chemical switches that are on our genes to regulate expression. Epigenetics is revealing that the foods that we eat switch these genes on or off, and that is going to be something that leads to either wellness or illness. So this is why your DNA isn't your destiny, I have on the slide there. The research shows that 80% of your genes can be turned on or off by what you put in your mouth and what you choose to do. So things like allergies, cancer, autoimmune disease, diabetes, we can make a difference in this. I find this message very empowering, and of course, again, you don't hear a lot about this. We still hear a lot, oh, someone in my family has this disease or this or whatever, and people think that we're destined to have that same thing. I want to bring up, this is a really simple concept, but sometimes it's new for a lot of people, and so it's a little bit hard to explain, but I want to talk a little bit about, again, building on these principles, and then we'll get into more things. But we are flesh and blood, and in our simplest form, we are atoms that vibrate at a certain level. We are energy. Chinese medicine refers to it as qi. So what we eat affects this vibrational state that we have. And really, it's as simple as certain foods can either increase your energy or decrease your energy. Again, this is simple, guys, right? This is like preschool, but we got to get back to really driving this point home. All disease is the result of a decrease in the vibrational energy. And when our energy drops to a certain point, there are these natural forces in the world that are designed to come in and decompose our bodies to go back to the earth. Anyone that has composted understands this. Microbes come in and, break things down. So when anything dies, whether it is an animal being hit by a car or a person with a long-term illness, the cells of the body immediately become acidic and they lose their vibration. And that acid state is that signal for the microbes, whether they're bacteria, fungi, yeasts, etc., to come in and start to decompose that body, to take it back into the earth. So this is their job. The microbes it's the reason they exist in the universe. So when we eat, foods are broken down, they are metabolized into an ash in our body. So anyways, the foods that we eat either leave an acid or an alkaline residue behind, an ash behind. If it's alkaline, no problem. That is very easy for our body to remove. It doesn't leave a waste behind. It's a very good thing. If it is an acidic waste, then that is very hard for our body to get rid of. And these acids can build up in our organs and in our tissues, and they create blocks in the vibration of our cells. Basically, the more acid byproducts that we store, the more acid, the more acidic that our tissues become, and the more we resemble the death state. So remember, this is what attracts the microbes. I have on the slide, illness can only exist in an acidic environment. So the wrong foods lower our vibrational level to the point that the forces of nature begin to try to return our bodies back to the earth. And they're just doing their job. They're just doing what they were created to do. Diets that create an acidic environment are the real problem. So I use this simple pH paper that Oriana sells. It's very easy to use. You put your saliva on it and you look and match the color. It's very, very simple to see how you're doing as far as this acid-alkaline state. What this slide is showing, this acidity that I'm talking about is what creates chronic inflammation. And inflammation by itself is not a problem. Inflammation is a normal response to injury, and our body uses inflammation to heal itself. But what happens when we have chronic inflammation? That's the leading cause of disease in the body. So inflammation really is the first warning sign saying that there's something that's causing our body distress. And the body has to, the body has this innate ability to heal itself if we just give it a fighting chance, basically. But if we don't remove that source of inflammation, then it continues. Eventually people have to seek urgent care. And symptom and pain management will provide short-term relief, but you're not getting to the root cause of the problem. Okay, so a little bit with statistics. We have 246 million people with diabetes worldwide. There are at 1.6 million new cases of diabetes being diagnosed in adults annually in our country. 80 million people have heart disease. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 2 men will have cancer in their lifetime. Our national healthcare expenditure was over $2.5 trillion in 2009. It's estimated that we're over $3 trillion currently. And really, we could probably spend the rest of the time giving statistics. I mean, Sandy had a nice list, and I could go on and on. But the point is, we need to recognize that we have a problem, and that really we have some solutions. There are positive things we can do. It's estimated that 85% of chronic disease is due to lifestyle choices. 62 million Americans with diabetes. It's almost 20% of the population now. I know some of the statistics I've seen before said it was closer to 8%, but that was a number of years ago. So this diabetes is skyrocketing. The number of diabetic children has been increasing at an alarming rate. And as Sandy mentioned, we have 79 people in the U.S. that have what's termed pre-diabetes. And what that means is they are going to be diabetic within the next 10 years, it's estimated. What's being done, what this slide is showing is what's being done to manage diabetes in our country. The pie chart shows that we have 58% of diabetics on oral medications for their blood sugars. 14% are on insulin and oral medications. We have 12% of diabetics on insulin only. A lot of those will be the type 1 diabetics, which used to be called juvenile diabetes. And we have 16% on no medications yet, using diet as a primary method to control. This is a dietary disease. And I think it's sad that 84% of the people with this disease aren't using diet as a management tool. What's going on is the standard American diet is causing this. I love they mentioned that in the movie. SAD, standard American diet. And you know, what is the standard American diet? It is primarily processed foods, sugars, starches, processed oils, typical grocery store meats, poultry, eggs, produce, coming from factory farms, which is a whole issue in itself. And then most recently, genetically modified organisms, GMOs. And as Sandy mentioned, tomorrow night they're going to be showing the movie here at the library on genetic roulette. I encourage you to watch it. It is unbelievable what is going on. Let's talk about blood sugar and insulin. Remember, our foods break down primarily into three components, three caloric components, I'll be clear on that. Fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. Carbohydrates have an immediate effect on our blood glucose, our blood sugar, and proteins and fats don't break down immediately into sugar, so they don't spike our blood sugars like the carbohydrates do. Insulin stimulates hunger, one of its primary roles, and it is a fat storage hormone, particularly abdominal fat. And most of you will remember, I've got the lock and key, that insulin, we won't get real deep into this by any means, but insulin, the blood cells need a key to unlock the door, to open the door for sugar to go into the cells. Otherwise, they can be virtually, high blood sugar around them, and they can be starving. So insulin is that key that opens up the cell so the sugar can go in. I want to share a little bit about leptin. Insulin and leptin. Leptin is starting to get more information and be put out there a bit more. And of course, we're looking for a drug now that can, be primarily affecting this leptin, this protein. Really, let's remember, the root of the problem for type 2 diabetics is insulin resistance. Okay? So leptin is a hormone produced by your fat cells. It's going to tie in very intimately with insulin. Leptin is largely responsible for the accuracy of insulin signaling and whether or not you become insulin resistant. Leptin's primary role is regulating your appetite and your body weight. It tells your brain when to eat, how much to eat, and also when to stop eating. And leptin tells the brain what to do with our energy stores that it or the energy that's on hand. So it's going to communicate to insulin, which insulin, sugars and grains raise your blood sugar. When this happens, insulin is released to direct the extra energy into storage. A small amount is stored as glycogen, but the majority is stored as energy, as your main energy source, which is fat. So insulin's major role is storing that energy for future times of need. Insulin affects, really, the effects of insulin of lowering your blood sugar are merely a side effect of the energy storage process. So I don't know if any of you have experienced this or if you've noticed when type 2 diabetics start taking insulin, they usually have more of a problem with their weight than prior to that. And that's because it is this direct storage. So if you consume lots of sugar, you're going to have those, in the grains, you're going to have those blood sugar spikes. It's going to lead to increased insulin. Then you're going to have increased fat storage. You get this vicious cycle. The extra fat then produces more leptin. And at some point, your body becomes deaf to the hormonal signals. You can't tell anymore that there's these hormonal signals telling your brain that you're full and that you should stop eating. So as your weight goes up, your insulin resistance sets in, and you get diabetes, along with a whole host of other health risk factors. Some people with diabetes and without get hypoglycemia. I see a lot of people that have been told they're supposed to have, drink juice, have sugar, something sugary, to remedy that low blood sugar. I don't agree with that. These are all conditions that are related to too much sugar and too much carbohydrate. So we need to really step back and look at what we're doing with the diet. Interestingly enough, artificial sweeteners actually rapidly stimulate the release of insulin and leptin, which is something diabetics want to avoid. And they lead to greater weight gain than sugar. Isn't that interesting? These artificial sweeteners have been promoted as, diet foods for a long time. And if you're interested, there's a great book called Sweet Deception. And if you want to know the history behind it and the political stuff and really what these artificial sweeteners are, I recommend that. Again, that's Sweet Deception. And you can read more. Fructose. Fructose is more detrimental than any other type of sugar. Drinking just one sweetened drink per day can raise your diabetes risk by 25% compared to drinking one sugary drink per month. So when I'm talking fructose, I mean commercial juices, high fructose corn syrup. A lot of people get worried and think, oh, she's saying I can't have fruit. No, whole food is completely different. It contains fiber, which modulates that sugar release. So I'm talking the high fructose corn syrup is one of the primary ones that really I think has led to a lot of these problems. So if any of you remember, there were commercials a number of years ago about high fructose corn syrup has the same amount of sugar, or same amount of calories as sugar. Remember all that? And what I want to point out is that they do have the same amount of calories, but their metabolic effect is not even close. They are two completely different animals. And I won't get into all the chemistry part of it, but fructose has to be, it's your liver that has to deal with it, whereas sucrose or glucose, your liver does not have a very big involvement there. But the real problem is that when you eat 120 calories of fructose or some other sugar, the fructose gets converted into 40 calories of fat. The other sugar would only get converted into 1 calorie. 1 calorie would get converted into fat. So there's a huge 40 to 1. Which one do you want? So keep that in mind. A little bit about trans fats. Trans fats cannot be metabolized in the human body. And these are, anything that is hydrogenated is a trans fat. So they can't be metabolized in our body. However, they can be absorbed into your cell membranes where healthy essential fats should be. And this is a big part of the insulin resistance. They actually worsen insulin resistance because they're changing the permeability of our cell membranes. And the really bad thing is that the half-life of trans fats is 51 days. So one serving of trans fat can stay in your body for 3 to 4 months. And that's just horrible. So I'll talk a little bit about those hydrogenated oils, and those are things when we get to label reading that we're really going to want to stay away from. And I see a lot of people that even if they've already made their changes in sugars and lowering their sugar and grain intake, if they haven't addressed those hydrogenated and GMO oils, they still are having major problems with their blood sugars, and it's usually a trans fat issue. And the, again, this is about money. The labeling of foods are it's very sketchy. This is why I'm going to teach you to read the ingredients, not the nutrition facts, because sadly we've made it through whoever has the most money has made it so that they can actually say if something has a 0.5 gram of trans fat in a serving, and maybe it's one cookie, that they can say there's 0 trans fats, but you can always tell by the hydrogenated oil that is in the product. Okay, so what do we do? Well, first thing is we need to eliminate processed foods. Start with whole foods, and whole foods don't come out of a package. They can be recognized either from the field or from the farm into the store. Got a picture of, I'm in the produce aisle at Oriana eating an apple. This is in Oriana, the eggs and butter. These things, we've been told that they're bad for us, and the history of egg consumption has decreased 98% in the last 100 years. Heart disease has skyrocketed. Eggs are not the problem. So, I have so many people that are afraid of these foods, and they don't raise your blood sugar. They are wonderful, healthy foods, especially we want clean sources of protein, not the factory farm stuff or the GMO. Okay, so a lot of what I recommend is eating good fats from grass-fed meats, pastured eggs, grass-fed dairy, avocados, coconut oil. These saturated fats, and I know we've been told for so long saturated fats are so bad for us. It's not true. Inflammation is one of the, I think, inflammation, that acidity and the inflammation is the big issue with heart disease, and we need to get to the root of that problem. These fats are very healing for the body, and they slow down our absorption, our digestion and absorption. You can go longer without feeling hungry. They don't have those blood sugar spikes, and they act as carriers for very important fat-soluble vitamins, which are the A, D, E, and K. And most of us, most Americans, we are overfed but undernourished because we're not eating whole foods. So we want to eat the real foods. Okay, here is an example. To take the first step, you need to read ingredients on the food labels. This is an example of a Yoplait yogurt. And you want to avoid things that have a long list of ingredients. I like to say, try not to get anything that has more than 5 ingredients in it. Really, if it's 1 or 2, you're better off. But I just want to point out that on the left, this 1 cup of yogurt has 33 grams of carbohydrate. Then on the right, you can see it has, so not only does it have a long ingredient, it's yogurt, it should be pasteurized milk, essentially. That should be it with cultures, that should be all that's in there. It's got high fructose corn syrup, there's that fructose. One of my kids actually noticed, we were on vacation and they were looking at the yogurts for breakfast, and they noticed the same amount of sugar in a yogurt, in a Yoplait yogurt, as there is in a can of soda. Although yogurt used to be, again, it used to be a health food when it first started, and we've gotten, way off base with that. So a better option, you look at this, 7 Stars Farm has 11 grams of carbohydrate in 1 cup. It's a plain yogurt. I suggest buy the bigger, you'll save money, and then add your own. If you need to do something sweet, you can add your fruit. You know exactly what you're putting in. You can add nuts, you can add granola. Again, making sure those haven't been adulterated with a bunch of things. But that's a third of the carbohydrates that are in the Yoplait yogurt. And that makes a huge difference in in your blood sugar. Okay, soda. Avoid sugary drinks. I brought a couple things. I like to show, I'll talk about the slide too, but I like to show I've got a bottle of Powerade and a 16-ounce Coke. Who thinks that there's more sugar in this one? Who thinks there's more sugar in this one? Oh, no one's participating. I tricked you anyways. It's actually, they're exactly the same. 13 teaspoons of sugar in each one of these. And the Powerade is deceptive. And both, for instance, it's really not real sugar. It's both of them have high fructose corn syrup. The Powerade says on the label that it's 2.5 servings. I don't know anyone that saves this for 2 days, has a little bit. So you end up with 52 grams of sugar in each of them. That is 13 teaspoons. So my little slide here with the Coke, the can on the left has 10 teaspoons of, we say sugar, but it's high fructose corn syrup. And then the middle Coca-Cola has 16.5 teaspoons. And the far right, which is a 20-ounce Coke, which a lot of people drink in one serving, has 27.5 teaspoons of really high fructose corn syrup. And this just shows the proposed labeling. I don't know if we'll get to this. It would be helpful, but it says an 8-ounce serving. The current label on that 20-ounce Coke says 8 ounces, and then it says 2.5 servings per container. Again, no one's saving that, and so it's really, instead of 31 grams of carbohydrate in a cup, you get 78 grams of carbohydrate. That is crazy, and 27.5 teaspoons of high fructose corn syrup. A better alternative, water, obviously, hugely recommend water, 2 to 3 liters a day. Really a good guideline is actually half your body weight. That's the number of ounces you should be consuming in water per day. Water helps to flush out the toxins, helps to make you not so acidic, get rid of those things. For people that are making a transition or want something bubbly or a treat, kombucha is a nice choice, and it is not, it has 7 grams of carbohydrate in a cup. Basically, there's 2 cups in that, and that you can actually keep it because it's a fermented food, which you got to try some of those. It decreases the sugar. The bacteria, the cultures that are in there, can actually pre-digest the sugars for you. So they lower the sugars, they make carbonation as a natural byproduct, which is nice. And research is showing that fermented foods are good for your blood sugar, whether it's diabetes, hypoglycemia, all those things. Fermented foods, it's wonderful for your digestion, for any gut, for your immune system, all these things. The friendly bacteria, as I mentioned, they break down those carbohydrates into acids, and they promote growth of more good bacteria. And they can lower bad cholesterol, help the immune system, raise good cholesterol, and even have an anti-inflammatory effect. And so that will help decrease those blood sugar spikes. And even better is that once, I don't know if you caught it when I said those acids, and you thought, ooh, does that make you acidic? But once you consume this, it makes you acidic in your stomach where you're supposed to be, but when you digest it, absorb it, it makes you more alkaline. And that's one of my favorite things about the fermented or cultured foods, sometimes we call them cultured as well, that they can help you to be more alkaline and bring down that inflammation, and that is a good thing. Okay, so see a lot of 100-calorie snacks. Still we're holding on to calories are important, and as the fructose example showed, calories don't matter. It's the source that the calories come from, and these are just very processed junk foods, and they leave you wanting more. They don't satisfy your body. The advertising is very misleading. There's a long list of ingredients. When you look at those ingredients, they're full of chemicals, preservatives, GMOs, and they rob our body of its minerals. Fast food, that's another thing. Just say no. Begin to make a change. For anyone that hasn't seen it, Super Size Me is a wonderful thing. If you're a fast food goer, watch Super Size Me. My son was 4 years old. He's 13 now. He was 4 years old when he saw that movie, and he used to ask to go to McDonald's. Obviously, I didn't take him there very often, but he saw that movie, and he said, I will never eat there again. And he's never asked since. And it's huge when you see, this is not natural. These things that kids are dealing with. These used to be only reserved for elderly, for older people, and now we're seeing these issues because of food choices in children. Okay, so cinnamon, we mentioned that, question from the back. Cinnamon's been shown to lower fasting blood sugar levels. I love the spice. I mean, it tastes great. You can do things. You can use cinnamon sticks as a straw for warm beverages. It's lovely in tea. You can make cinnamon stick tea. You take like 2 or 3 cinnamon sticks and you boil them for probably up to 20 minutes, and it's great chilled as well. You can add it to oatmeal, real applesauce, real oatmeal, real applesauce, not the quick, fast ones that are loaded with ingredients. Again, most will have high fructose corn syrup. I was appalled. I went to buy a large can of applesauce for a party that we do, and high fructose corn syrup. Why? So I did not buy it. Made my own instead. You can add it to smoothies. You can even take it in capsules, and it's been shown that 1 gram of cinnamon per day, which is about probably a little less than a half a teaspoon. If you do that for 40 days, a lot of research has shown good results for blood sugar management. Obviously, you can't still drink soda and do all the junk and expect cinnamon to save, but it's a great thing to add daily. Okay, getting near the end. So, making these changes, there's more than just nutrition, and that's another thing I love about Oriana and the people that I engage with there. We're about the whole picture. And so, nutrition is a wonderful, important thing, but we also need to think of the rest of our lives. And exercise, get moving, that's a huge part of the diabetes problem. That is one of the best ways to bring down your blood sugars. And so many people think, that means having to go to the gym and do this strenuous workout for this many hours and all that. Just get moving. There are so many things, whether it's just starting with a walk, you can build up to lots of things. Find what you enjoy and what you can stick with. Stress relief, that's a huge one. Use things, there's yoga, meditation, prayer, to relax and renew, and practice these things daily and develop a routine that you can stick with. Get enough high-quality sleep each night. That's another important thing that often gets overlooked, especially with all of our technology and our lights and things that ding and do all of this. And love and support. Group support, practice fluent listening, gratefulness. This is another one that I find, there's a huge part that we attract what we think. And if we think negatively, those things will come to us. If we practice being grateful and looking at the positives, those things will come to us. Prayer, if that's comfortable, meditation, forgiveness, touch, and commitment. We've kind of gotten that very hands-off society, and that's another thing, to be able to support someone, a hug. You have to obviously find who's comfortable with it and when it's appropriate, but those are things to also look past